It's time for 10 minutes with Barb and Ron. Yes, we're back. We're back. Yes, we were we're back. That's all that matters. We were back in the last one too. Actually, I think we're in all of them. Anyway, Ron Rogers with OCALI.
Barb Green. And every time you do that, Ron, I think you're frozen. And I'm like, well, we can't do it now. Ron's frozen. But you weren't frozen. But good to be here. Barb Green.
I hear we've got something really important that you want to kind of bring up and talk about, something that you've kind of been working on lately at the school.
Yeah, exactly. It might be the middle of July, but many folks in schools are still working and getting ready for new staff who are going to be joining in a month. Unbelievable, but most school districts about a month away, school is going to be starting. So, Ron, I thought we could talk a little bit about like some orientation messages, that we might be able to put out there for new staff to help them understand sort of our culture and our beliefs. And of course, me, I'm going to tie in UDL. Is that a shock to you?
No, not at all. And I want to preface that too, because every now and then I hear people say, I'm not sure if I'm doing universal design for learning because we're not quite calling it all these different terms that are in the guidelines. That's okay. That's okay. You can be doing universal design for learning when you're following the guidelines. You don't have to call out every piece of it. So it sounds like to me, Barb, you're going to be tying in universal design for learning, but the language may not quite match.
Exactly, because sometimes when you label something, it turns people off right away. They think of it as an initiative, whereas we have talked about many times, UDL really is a way of thinking about how we design for kids, right? That's really at its core what it is. How do we design for kids?
Or maybe design for adults, depending on what your topic is and what the goal is today.
Absolutely. You brought in about 4 components of UDL right there. Yeah. So, well, as you know, my title is Director of Student Services and Accessibility. And I love that that's in part of my title. And so one of the things I think is important for people to think about is, what does accessibility mean to you? Often when you hear that word accessibility, Ron, what comes to your mind?
Well, I think about when I was little and I was short, I always wanted to drink out of the public water fountain, but I wasn't tall enough. But sometimes if I looked around, I could find like some little steps or something that I could get up on and drink out of it. Although if it was in a public place, my mom would get kind of angry because she's always afraid I'd catch something off of the fountain. Hey, when you're thirsty, you're thirsty, right? As long as you don't touch your mouth on the fountain, I think we're safe. But that's how I think of accessibility.
Okay, so that I'd put that in the kind of category of physical accessibility, yes. Right? Having access with our bodies to the things that we need to do. And I think about it really broadly in education. So one of the things, and you talk about this all the time, but how are we as the adults accessible to our children emotionally with those relationships? What kind of a culture and environment is our classroom so that it's accessible, that people feel connected and feel a part of it? So, I try to think about accessibility not only in those physical ways, but in the emotional ways. And then, of course, I'm going to weave in there, how accessible is the way you're teaching? Have you thought about that when you're going to teach something? Have you thought about all the different ways that somebody might want to experience that learning? What about when you're designing an assessment? How accessible is that going to be? So I think about accessibility in that engagement and social and physical and instructional and assessment. And so that's one of the pieces. And, UDL, the foundation of UDL is access, right? That's that first layer of UDL. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about weaving in. Do you think that'll be well received by the new staff?
You know what? Yes, I think it will. I think if they feel it, see it, you model it, and things like that, I think it really sets the tone and the climate of where they're going to be starting.
Awesome. Good. Well, the other one that I have always felt so connected to in UDL, and again, there's a checkpoint on it, but we don't have to pull it out, but is this concept of collaboration. And I want our new staff to know that you don't have to go it alone, right? Like collaboration is the best way that we can all get better in supporting and helping kids learn. And so to me, that is, how do you open yourselves up to ask a question? And it is totally okay to ask a question. You may not know how to do X, Y, or Z, but let's just talk about it. Bring in a partner that, a teacher down the hall. How do they do it? Bring in one of your specialists, a special educator, maybe a related service provider. What are some ways that they might, give you some ideas to make things a little easier? So collaboration, right? Big part of UDL.
Love collaboration. And, some of this I've heard, and I've seen the cards out before, but in some of the districts, they'll have a card and they can put it up outside their room. And that means that other teachers during that lesson are welcome to come in. No formal invitation. Just come in anytime, sit down and enjoy, what's going on in our classroom. I thought that was pretty collaborative. And then later that teacher will usually ask whoever was in for a little bit of reflection on what could I do better? What could I do different? How would you have done it? Things like that. Safety.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. We've talked about pineapple charts before, where in the teacher's lounge, you say, if you want to see, a great peer collaborative activity, come see me fourth period. I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z, but that's even simpler what you just described. Does that card have a word or a picture or something on it, Ron?
You know what? Ron's just simple. It's just a card that's colorful and gets people's attention, and they just know that if the card's out, they can go in. Yeah, I pretty keep it simple. That's my first name's 3 letters.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that. So my last thought that I want to make sure our new staff think about is, and again, you'll hear UDL in this, but if you get to a point where you find that some of your students maybe are not picking up some of the content or not maybe learning the behavioral expectations in the classroom, our first default question might be, what are the barriers in what I have designed, or in the materials that I have chosen to use, or in the assessment that I have chosen to give? Are there some barriers? And that is very different. And you know what I'm going to say? That's very different language than what barriers does the kid have that's getting in the way. It's not that. And so I really think if we just think about accessibility, collaboration, and rethinking barriers, we're setting staff up on a great journey into a great school year. What do you think? What would you add?
I love those 3 things. I was trying to get my fingers right so people could see them. I love those 3 things. And you know what? You said the other one earlier, and that is that relationship. To form a good relationship, you have to have trust. And to have trust, and you do those 3 things, are going to build both relationship and trust. And if we're not looking at the student as broken, we really come across much better, much heartful, much more heartful. I call it heartful because it's, if you win their hearts, you win their minds. So, we've just got to attack the heart. We got to win them over. Absolutely. They're a person. They're a little person. And then, like you said, with the new staff, they're an adult that wants to feel welcome, and they want to be comfortable and have a relationship above the work and beyond.
Absolutely.
So
you ask any teacher why they got into education, and it's about building relationships with kids and making a difference for them. And so, with that, with accessibility, collaboration, barrier-free environment, and relationships, we can start a great school year, and Barb is out.
I'm speechless. Ron's out. Thanks, Barb. YouTube, please subscribe. Like, comment, and share.